The night sky above the alien city was alive with strange lights. The towers of black stone rose high, glowing faintly as though the city itself was breathing. In the heart of the Empire's capital, a great arena shook with the noise of thousands of alien voices. They shouted, roared, and hissed, eager for the show that was about to begin. The people of this empire did not gather for sport. They gathered for blood. Tonight was special. Tonight they had something rare, something the crowds had not seen in years. A human. Down in the lower tunnels of the arena, a boy no older than 10 years was dragged forward by 2 alien guards. His wrists were tied with chains that looked far too heavy for his small arms. His face was pale, his dark hair matted with dust, but his eyes, those eyes, still carried a strange fire. The aliens barked at him in a language he did not understand, their tall reptilian shapes towering above him, their sharp teeth flashing in the torchlight. The boy stumbled, nearly fell, but kept walking. He did not cry. Not yet. The crowd above grew louder. They could smell fear. They could taste the promise of death. For weeks they had been told of this event, that a human child would be thrown into the pit with the most feared beast of their empire. The creature was older than the empire itself, a monster raised to kill anything thrown before it. It was said that no warrior, no slave, no machine had survived more than a minute against it. The promise of such a sight drew tens of thousands into the arena. The gates opened. A hot wind rushed through the tunnel, carrying the smell of blood and smoke. The boy was shoved forward. He stumbled again but did not fall this time. Instead, he straightened, breathing hard, as the light of the arena hit his face. Above, the aliens roared even louder. Their claws scraped metal railings. Their eyes glowed in the dark. They shouted for the beast. They shouted for the kill. And then the boy was pushed into the sand pit. The gates behind him slammed shut with a sound like thunder. The boy stood alone in the center of the massive arena. The sand beneath his bare feet was stained red with old blood. Scars marked the stone walls around him. He looked up, and for the first time saw how truly massive the crowd was. It was like standing in the middle of a living storm. He could feel their hunger for violence pressing down on him. Then silence. The crowd went still. Not a single sound echoed across the arena. Even the torches seemed to dim. The air grew heavy. The boy turned his head slowly toward the far end of the pit. There, a set of massive iron gates began to rise. The chains groaned. Sparks flew. Behind those gates, the darkness moved. A deep growl rumbled through the air, shaking the sand at the boy's feet. The crowd gasped in awe. The beast had awakened. The iron gate slammed upward. Out of the darkness came a monster that seemed born from nightmare. It was huge, larger than a house, its skin armored with black scales that gleamed under the firelight. Its eyes burned with golden fire. Its teeth were jagged and long, dripping with saliva. Massive wings folded against its back. Scarred from battles it had fought long before this day. The beast stepped into the arena, claws sinking deep into the sand, and lifted its head high. The sound it made shook the entire city. A roar so loud, so full of power, that even the strongest alien nobles felt fear in their bones. The boy's hair was blown back by the force of it. He did not move. He only watched as the beast's gaze finally fell upon him. The crowd began to chant again. Kill! 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 Their voices rose higher and higher, demanding blood, demanding the child's death. The beast lowered its head and began to move toward him. Each step sent tremors through the sand. Its eyes fixed on the boy. Its mouth opened slowly, rows of teeth gleaming wet in the torchlight. The boy's small fists tightened. He did not understand why this was happening. He did not know why the aliens wanted him dead. But in his chest burned something different from fear. He had felt fear when he was first captured, when they tore him from his family. He had felt fear in the cages. But now, standing before this monster, he felt something else. Something strange. The beast stopped only a few feet away. The boy could smell its breath, hot and heavy, stinking of blood. Saliva dripped onto the sand between them. The alien crowd leaned forward, waiting for the beast to strike. waiting for the boy to be torn apart in a spray of red. But the strike never came. Instead, the beast tilted its head. Its golden eyes narrowed, studying the boy. A deep growl rumbled again, but this time it sounded different. Not hunger, not rage, but something else. The boy lifted his chin. Slowly, carefully, he raised a hand toward the beast. The crowd gasped. Even the guards at the gates froze. No one dared to move. The boy's hand trembled, but he did not lower it. The beast leaned closer. His giant nostrils flared. It sniffed the child, the chains, the scent of fear that lingered in the air. Its tongue flicked out, brushing against the boy's hand. The crowd screamed, sure that this was the end. But again, no attack came. The boy whispered something. A single word in a human tongue, lost to the aliens but carried into the ears of the beast. The monster froze. Its golden eyes widened, as though it understood. Then, slowly, it lowered its massive head until its snout touched the ground before the child, almost like a bow. The arena erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted, screamed, some in rage, some in terror. This was not how the offering was supposed to end. This was not how the beast behaved. Never before had it spared a life. Never before had it shown submission. And yet, before their eyes, the most feared monster of their empire bowed its head to a fragile human child. The boy lowered his hand to rest gently on the beast's snout. His chains rattled as he did. His eyes burned not with fear now, but with something the aliens could not name. Hope. Above, the alien nobles rose from their seats in shock. This was impossible. This could not be. But it was. The bond had been formed. The beast growled again, but this time it was a sound of warning. Not to the boy, but to everyone else. Its eyes glared at the crowd, at the guards, at the nobles. Anyone who dared come closer would face death. The boy stood beside the beast, small and fragile but unbroken. The crowd had come to see blood. Instead, they had seen something they could not explain. And deep inside their hearts, buried beneath the hate and the hunger, a new fear was born. Not of the beast, not of the child, but of what humans might truly be. The arena was chaos. Screams, shouts, roars, thousands of alien voices clashed together, shaking the walls. The crowd had expected blood, but what they had seen was something far more disturbing. The child was alive. The beast was kneeling. No one understood it. No one wanted to believe it. The nobles in their golden balcony stood frozen, their jeweled claws gripping the railings. These were the rulers of the empire, the ones who had demanded this offering. They had wanted to prove a point to the galaxy, that humans were weak, fragile, easy to break. Yet here, before the entire city, their own monster had refused their command. "Kill the child!" one noble shouted, his voice high with rage. "Kill the beast if it will not obey!" another cried, his long tail lashing the floor. Down in the pit, guards rushed to obey. They carried whips crackling with electric fire, weapons made to control the beast. They had used these whips 1,000 times before. Each time, the monster obeyed, driven mad with pain and bloodlust. But when the first whip cracked across the beast's armored scales, something changed. The monster did not flinch. It did not roar. Instead, it turned its golden eyes toward the guards, and for the first time, there was fury in its gaze. A deep growl rumbled through the arena, shaking the ground. The guards hesitated, but the nobles screamed again. "Strike it! Force it to kill the human!" The whips lashed once more, sparks flying across the black scales. This time the beast moved. It swung its tail like a storm, smashing the first guard into the wall so hard his armor cracked like an eggshell. The second was caught in its jaws, lifted high into the air, and then thrown across the arena, his scream ending in silence. Blood splashed across the sand. The crowd gasped in horror. This was not the show they had wanted. The beast had never turned against its masters before. Never. Through it all, the child stood frozen. His small body trembled, but his eyes stayed locked on the beast. He should have run. He should have hidden. But something deep inside told him not to. Somehow, he knew the monster would not harm him. Somehow, he knew it was looking at him for guidance. The beast stomped closer, lowering its head until it was beside the child again. The ground shook with every step. The golden eyes softened, glowing less like fire and more like light. The boy reached out again with his chained hand and touched the beast's snout. The growling stopped. The monster went still, calm as stone. Above, silence fell across the arena. Even the nobles could not find their voices. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's greatest weapon had been tamed, and not by a commander, not by a scientist, not by force. By a child. By a human. The whispers began at once. From the lowest seats to the highest balconies, voices spread like wildfire. The beast listens to the human. Impossible. It has never listened to anyone. Perhaps the humans are not as weak as we believed. The nobles heard it too, and their rage turned to fear. Fear of what this meant for their empire. If one child could control their strongest monster, what could an army of humans do? Seize them both! The emperor's voice finally thundered, shaking the arena louder than the crowd. He rose to his full height, a towering figure of scales and jewels. His crown glowed in the firelight. Take the human and the beast. Study them. Break them. If they cannot be broken, destroy them. Guards swarmed the arena gates, hundreds of them armed with spears, nets, shock rods, and cannons. The beast roared at the sight, its wings spreading wide, casting shadows across the pit. The sound made the air itself tremble. Sand flew into the air, torches shook, and many in the crowd covered their ears. The child whispered again, a soft word in a language no alien understood. The beast stilled, lowering its wings, but its golden eyes never left the soldiers. The boy turned, and for the first time, faced the sea of guards rushing toward them. He was small. He was weak. But he did not step back. The first wave of soldiers leapt into the pit, charging with spears aimed at the beast. The monster's tail whipped through the air, smashing them into the sand like dolls. Another group fired nets charged with lightning, but the creature tore them apart as though they were made of paper. Its claws crushed weapons, its jaws shattered shields. The arena floor became a storm of dust, fire, and screams. And yet, through it all, the beast never touched the boy. Not once. The nobles could not believe what they were seeing. Their unstoppable weapon had turned against them, and the child stood untouched in the center of it all. Fear spread through the crowd like a disease. The empire had always ruled with power, with fear of their beast. But now that fear was changing direction. Now it belonged to the humans. The battle raged for long minutes until the emperor raised his clawed hand. The horns of the arena blared. The guards retreated, dragging their dead and wounded with them. The gates slammed shut again, leaving the boy and the beast alone in the blood-stained sand. The emperor's golden eyes narrowed as he looked down upon the child. His voice rolled across the arena like thunder. This human is no ordinary slave. This child has power we do not understand. Power that could destroy us if left unchecked. He will be taken to the laboratories. The beast will be caged. We will find the truth. The crowd murmured, uneasy. Many of them had seen the look in the beast's eyes when it bowed to the child. Many had felt the power in that moment. They knew something had changed forever. Down below, the boy leaned against the beast's great head, exhausted. His chains rattled as his small fingers gripped its scales. The monster gave a low, protective growl, as if it knew what the emperor planned, as if it promised to protect the child no matter what. The gates opened again. This time, massive chains and machines rolled into the arena, designed to drag the beast back to its prison. Dozens of heavy cannons pointed down from the walls, ready to fire if it resisted. The boy was grabbed by guards, pulled away from the monster, and thrown into a separate cage. The beast roared in fury, straining against the chains, its golden eyes burning with rage as it watched the child being taken. The sound echoed across the city, a cry of rage so deep it seemed to tear the sky itself. The crowd shivered. Even the nobles turned pale. For in that roar was not just anger, It was a promise. Promise that this story was not over. The city did not sleep that night. The beast's roar still echoed across the streets, rolling through the towers and echoing in the alleys. Even hours after the arena had been cleared, people whispered in every corner. In the markets, in the taverns, in the soldier barracks, the same words were repeated again and again. The beast bowed to a human child. First, no one believed it. It sounded like a mad story, an exaggeration told by drunken merchants. But too many had seen it with their own eyes. Too many had felt the ground tremble when the monster lowered its head before the child. What had begun as murmurs in the shadows grew into whispers that spread through the empire like wildfire. In the palace, the nobles gathered in secret chambers, their jeweled hands shaking as they argued. "This cannot be allowed," one snarled, his tongue flicking nervously. "If word spreads beyond our borders, the other races will think humans are special. They will think we are weak." "Special?" Another spat. "They are vermin, nothing more than pests scattered across ruined worlds." "Then explain what happened," a third voice hissed. "Explain how a beast that has killed every warrior we ever fed to it chose not to kill the child. Explain how the strongest weapon of our empire bent its head to a fragile little human." The chamber grew silent. None could explain it. None wanted to. The emperor sat upon his throne at the head of the hall, his golden eyes glowing in the dim light. His voice was low but heavy with power. "The child and the beast will be separated. The beast will be chained and sealed. The child will be studied. We will find the truth behind this bond. If it is a trick, we will break it. If it is something real, we will crush it before it can grow." The nobles bowed, but unease lingered in their hearts. For the first time in centuries, they felt something dangerous creeping into their empire. Fear. Deep below the palace, in the laboratories of steel and fire, the child was locked inside a cage too small to stand in. The chains on his wrists and ankles glowed faintly with alien energy, meant to weaken him, meant to keep him fragile. He sat on the cold floor, knees pulled to his chest, staring at the wall. Across the chamber, scientists with sharp scales and cold eyes watched him through glass. They whispered among themselves, taking notes, recording every breath he took. "His body is weak, like all humans," one muttered. "Yet the beast responds to him," another answered. "We must discover why. Perhaps his blood holds something. Perhaps his voice carries a frequency. Perhaps." The boy turned his head and looked at them. His eyes were calm, but there was something sharp hidden in them, something that made the scientists fall silent. He was just a child. He had no weapons, no strength. And yet, in that gaze, they felt small. Far away, in another part of the palace, the beast was chained inside a massive dark cell. Dozens of thick iron bindings wrapped around its body, each one glowing with the same energy that bound the boy. The chains dug deep into its scales, but still the monster strained, pulling, twisting, roaring in fury. It wanted out. It wanted the child. Every time the beast roared, the boy in his cage lifted his head. Every time the boy whispered a word under his breath, the beast stilled, as if the sound had reached its ears even across stone and steel. The guards noticed. They tried to keep the two apart, but something invisible connected them still. As days passed, the whispers grew louder. Soldiers began to question their orders. Slaves spread the story in the shadows. Merchants carried the tale to other worlds. Even the lowest workers in the mines spoke of it. They say the beast refused to kill the boy. They say the human spoke a word and the beast obeyed. They say the empire is afraid. And in every retelling, the boy grew braver, the beast grew larger, and the empire's power grew weaker. The emperor's spies brought back reports from distant colonies. Other species had begun to hear the story. Some laughed, but others listened closely. They too had feared the beast for generations. And if a human child could tame it, what did that mean about the strength of humanity? The empire had meant to humiliate humans to prove them weak. Instead, they had given them a legend. One night, in the dim halls of the laboratory, a group of guards spoke in hushed voices. "I saw it myself," one muttered. The beast tore through 10 men but never touched the boy. "You should keep your tongue still," another warned. "The Emperor will kill anyone who spreads such lies." "They are not lies," the first answered. His eyes darted nervously toward the boy's cage. "Look at him. He's just a child. But when I stand near him, I feel something. Like he's not afraid. Like he knows something we don't." The third guard shivered. "He looked right at me once. Just once. I swear my blood went cold." None of them noticed that the boy was listening. His eyes, half hidden in shadow, were fixed on them. He said nothing, but in his silence there was a quiet strength that unsettled them all. The nobles grew more desperate. Some demanded the boy's death. Others argued that killing him too quickly would waste an opportunity. If they could discover the secret, they might use it to control the beast for themselves. The Emperor, however, was patient. His golden eyes gleamed as he spoke in the council chamber. "Do you not see the danger? This is not about the beast. This is about humanity. We have always believed them weak, scattered, easy to conquer. But if even one child holds such power, what of the others? What if they are all hiding strength we cannot see?" The chamber grew cold at his words. The thought of an entire species with hidden power was not one they wished to consider. "We will end this," the Emperor declared. "We will end it before it begins. Humanity must be erased, every last trace. And this child will be the key. His blood will reveal the truth." The nobles bowed low, but unease gnawed at their hearts. Meanwhile, in the darkness of his cage, the boy whispered softly to himself. Words no alien understood. Words from his home, from the world he had lost. Each time he spoke, the beast in its prison roared back, as if answering across the walls. The guards grew uneasy. The scientists pretended not to notice. But everyone could feel it. Something was growing. Not just a bond between a boy and a beast. Something deeper. Something older. Something the Empire could not control. And in the shadows of the city, where whispers turned into rumors, and rumors turned into belief, fear spread like poison. For the first time, the Empire's people wondered if perhaps the humans were not weak at all. Perhaps, hidden beneath their fragile skin, was a strength that even monsters could not resist. And that thought was more terrifying than any beast. The days turned into weeks, but the city did not forget what had happened in the arena. The whispers only grew louder. What began as secret talk in the shadows became bold discussion in the markets and even in the barracks of the soldiers. The Empire had always been built on fear of its armies, fear of its rulers, and most of all, fear of the beast that had crushed every enemy thrown against it. But now, that fear was bending, twisting, becoming something dangerous. For the first time, people were afraid not of the beast, but of the humans. The Emperor saw it too. He sat high in his golden throne, looking down at the nobles who argued day and night about what to do. Some begged him to kill the child before the story spread further. Others demanded he order the scientists to tear the child apart and learn every secret hidden in his blood. But the Emperor was patient. His golden eyes burned as he gave his command. "Do not kill him yet. The child is a key, and keys open doors. We will discover what power lies in his kind. If it can be used, it will belong to us. If it cannot, then humanity will be erased." The nobles bowed, their jeweled claws clicking against the floor, but unease rippled through them. For deep down, none could deny what they had seen in the arena. None could forget the image of the beast lowering its head before the boy. In the laboratories below the palace, the child remained locked in his cage of steel and light. Strange devices hummed around him, scanning his body, drawing his blood, measuring his heartbeat. Alien scientists whispered in low voices, speaking of frequencies, brain patterns, and genetic codes. They could not understand how a frail human could bend the will of their strongest weapon. The boy said nothing. He sat in silence, his dark eyes steady, watching every move they made. He was only a child, small and chained, but his silence unsettled them more than screams ever could. Across the fortress, in a chamber carved from black stone, the beast strained against its chains. Dozens of thick bindings glowed with energy, biting deep into its scales. The monster's wings were folded tight, its body scarred by whips and weapons. Yet still it fought. Every roar shook the walls. Every pull snapped steel apart. No matter how many times they reforged the chains, the beast tore them down again. And every time it roared, the boy in the cage lifted his head. He whispered words too soft for the scientists to understand. But across the stone and steel, the beast heard him. It would go still, its golden eyes burning brighter, waiting, listening. The guards noticed. The scientists wrote it down. And the emperor grew restless. Whispers spread beyond the capital, carried by travelers and merchants. On distant colonies, alien workers told the story of the human child and the beast. Some laughed, calling it a trick. But others listened with wide eyes. For generations, the empire had ruled with the terror of its monster. If that terror could be broken by a human child, what did that mean for the galaxy? The other species began to watch humans more closely. Some were slaves in the mines, some hidden on forgotten worlds. But everywhere the story spread, the same thought returned again and again. Maybe the humans were not weak. Maybe they were something else. Inside the empire, fear grew in the hearts of the people. Soldiers in the barracks sharpened their weapons but spoke quietly of what they had seen. The beast obeyed him, one said. It killed us, but not him. It listened. Others nodded in silence, for they too had felt the chill in their blood when the child raised his hand in the arena. The empire was beginning to fracture. One night, the boy was dragged from his cage and taken to a new chamber. The walls here were covered with strange machines, glowing with sickly light. He was strapped to a table, his arms spread, the chains digging into his skin. The scientists leaned over him, their sharp tools glinting. "We will cut into him," one hissed. "We will see what lies inside his blood, what makes the beast obey." Another nodded. Perhaps his heart carries the secret. Perhaps his voice. Perhaps his mind. The boy's chest rose and fell quickly. For the first time in many days, fear showed in his eyes. He struggled, pulling against the chains, but the bindings were too strong. Across the fortress, the beast roared. A roar so loud it split stone and shattered glass. The scientists froze, their hands trembling. The boy's eyes widened as he heard it. The machines rattled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The beast tore free of another chain, its golden eyes blazing like fire. The guards panicked, shouting, rushing with weapons, but the monster smashed them aside. It clawed at the walls, desperate, wild, driven by something deeper than hunger or rage, driven by the bond. The boy whispered through cracked lips, calling across the stone. The sound was faint, weak, but it carried. The beast stilled, listening, and then roared again. A sound of defiance, a sound that shook the very bones of the city. That night, the nobles gathered again in the council hall. Fear filled their voices now, sharper than before. "It is dangerous," one cried. "No chain can hold it. No weapon can kill it. The child strengthens it. If they are left together, our empire will fall." "Then kill them both," another shouted. The emperor raised his hand, silencing them. His golden eyes narrowed. "No, not yet. There is something deeper here. Humanity may carry a power we do not understand. If we destroy this child, we may never know. And if humans spread across the stars with this power unbroken, then we will face our own destruction." The chamber fell silent. They knew his words were true, but none wished to admit it. The empire's greatest fear was not the beast, nor the child. It was the idea that humanity, the species they had always seen as weak, might be the one thing they could not control. Outside the palace, the streets burned with quiet unrest. Slaves whispered of rebellion. Soldiers muttered in doubt. The common people began to look at the sky with unease, as though expecting something to come. The storm was building. The boy sat once more in his cage, his arms scarred from the chains, his eyes dark with exhaustion. But when the beast roared again, he lifted his head. Slowly, painfully, he smiled. The scientists watching through the glass stepped back, chilled by the expression on a child's face. For in that smile was no fear, no weakness, only defiance. And far across the city, in the cell of chains and fire, the beast's golden eyes glowed brighter than ever. The bond had not been broken. It had only grown stronger. The Empire believed they still held control. But in the shadows, in the whispers, in the rising fear spreading like poison through their people, something new was awakening. Something no empire could stop. The palace was never quiet. Guards patrolled its long halls, nobles whispered in its chambers, and machines hummed in the laboratories below. But on this night, a strange tension hung in the air. The stars above the capital seemed darker, the streets seemed quieter, and even the torches along the palace walls flickered as though the fire itself was nervous. Inside his steel cage, the human child sat cross-legged, his thin arms resting on his knees. He had not eaten in 2 days, but his eyes still burned with a fire that none of the scientists could measure or understand. They watched him from behind the glass wall, muttering to each other about heartbeats and frequencies. But they never looked too long into his eyes. Something about those dark eyes unsettled them, as if the child was watching them the way predators watch prey. Then it happened. Far below, in the stone chamber where the beast was chained, the first sound of rebellion came. It was not a roar, but a low growl, long and steady, like thunder rumbling across mountains. The guards who stood watch shifted uneasily. They had heard the beast roar 100 times before, but this was different. This sound was deeper, more controlled, as if the creature was waiting for something. Moments later, the chains snapped. Not one chain, but 3 at once. The noise was like cannons firing, echoing through the fortress walls. Sparks showered as the beast ripped its body free. Alarms screamed to life, red lights flashing across the halls. Soldiers ran in every direction, shouting commands, raising their rifles. The scientists in the laboratory froze in terror. The boy lifted his head. For the first time in days, he stood. The beast stormed through its prison, smashing walls, crushing guards like insects beneath its claws. Its golden eyes burned with savage light, but they were not wild. They were focused on something far away, something it could feel even through the stone and steel. The child. The boy placed his small hand against the cold wall of his cage. He closed his eyes and whispered words in his own language, soft and steady. None of the aliens understood, but they all felt it. A pressure filled the air, invisible but heavy, like a storm rolling in. The scientists stumbled back, their instruments sparking. The boy's words grew stronger, and then the glass wall shattered. The scientists screamed as shards rained across the floor. The boy stepped forward, dragging the broken chains still hanging from his wrists. His body was thin, his feet bare, but the way he walked made even the guards hesitate. He looked like a shadow moving with purpose, guided by something greater than himself. Across the fortress, the beast roared again, louder, closer. The walls shook, the floors cracked, dust filled the air. The Empire's nightmare was loose. The Emperor was pulled from his throne chamber by a rush of guards. His golden eyes narrowed as the alarms blared. "Report," he hissed. "The beast," one officer stammered. "It has broken its chains. It's heading straight toward the laboratory." "And the human?" The officer swallowed hard. "Gone from his cell. We think he is moving toward the beast." The Emperor's jaw clenched. For the first time in years, his heart pounded with something he had almost forgotten, fear. The halls of the palace burned with chaos. Soldiers fired plasma rifles, their shots lighting up the darkness. Explosions shook the walls as security doors slammed shut one after another. But nothing stopped the beast. It ripped through barriers, smashed armored vehicles, and tore apart squads of trained warriors. The more they tried to contain it, the more it destroyed. And always it moved toward the boy. The child stumbled through the corridors, dodging soldiers who were too distracted by the chaos. He was small enough to slip through cracks in the battle lines, fast enough to escape the grasp of guards. His bare feet slapped against the cold floor as he ran toward the thunderous sound of the beast's roars. At last, in a hall filled with smoke and fire, they saw each other. The beast stood at the far end, golden eyes glowing through the haze. Soldiers shouted, raising their rifles, but froze when they saw the child step out of the shadows. The boy lifted his hand. Slowly, carefully, he reached toward the monster. The beast stopped. The soldiers held their breath. Then, with a sound that shook the palace to its foundations, the beast lowered its massive head. Chains still hung from its body, glowing with sparks, but it bowed low before the human child. The soldiers broke. Panic filled their ranks as they realized the truth. The Empire's greatest weapon was no longer theirs. It belonged to the boy. The Emperor arrived in the hall, surrounded by his strongest guards. His golden eyes widened as he saw the sight before him. The beast bowed low, its burning gaze fixed on the child. The boy stood calmly, his hand resting against the monster's snout, his face steady and cold. For the first time in centuries, the Emperor felt powerless. "Kill them," he roared. His voice echoed with rage. The soldiers obeyed, opening fire with every weapon they had. Plasma bolts filled the air, the walls shaking under the force of the attack. But the beast moved like a storm unleashed. With one sweep of its massive tail, it crushed a squad into the wall. With one step, it shattered the floor beneath its claws. Fire poured from its throat, consuming everything in its path. The child did not flinch. He held onto the beast, whispering in his quiet human tongue, guiding it, calming it. The more the Emperor's soldiers fired, the stronger the bond between them grew. The hall became a graveyard of shattered armor and broken stone. The boy climbed onto the beast's back. His small hands gripped the ridges of its scales as the monster rose to its full height, towering above the burning ruins of the palace hall. Together, they turned toward the massive gates that led out into the city. The Emperor's golden eyes burned with fury. "No!" he shouted. "They will not leave. This is my empire. Nothing escapes me." But the beast roared, a roar so loud and full of rage that it silenced even the Emperor. Fire ripped across the gates, melting steel, blasting stone into rubble. The walls crumbled, the sky split open, and the child and the beast broke free into the night. The city below had never seen such chaos. Flames lit up the streets. Soldiers ran in panic. Citizens poured from their homes to watch as the Empire's weapon, the terror that had kept them enslaved for generations, rose into the sky with a human child on its back. The sight was burned into their minds forever. Whispers turned to shouts, shouts turned to cries, and cries turned to something far more dangerous than fear. Hope. Hope that the Empire could bleed. Hope that its chains could break. Hope that the weakest species they had mocked and enslaved might be the one to bring it down. The Emperor stood among the ruins of his palace, his fists clenched, his eyes glowing with hate. For the first time, he knew the truth. He had not just lost control of the beast. He had lost control of the galaxy. The night sky was burning. Towers collapsed in the distance as firestorms swept through the alien capital. Ships screamed across the horizon, their lights flashing red as they tried to surround the beast. The city trembled under the weight of panic. Citizens fleeing, soldiers shouting, commanders barking desperate orders through broken comms. And in the middle of it all, rising above the chaos like a shadow out of legend, was the beast. Its massive wings tore through the air as it climbed higher, flames dripping from its jaws, its golden eyes blazing. On its back sat the human child, small and fragile in appearance, but unshaken. His gaze locked forward as if he already knew where destiny was leading him. The Empire had built its power on fear. They had enslaved weaker races, destroyed worlds, crushed rebellions before they could even begin. But tonight, the Empire itself was afraid. Afraid of a boy. Afraid of a bond no one could understand. Afraid of the truth they had tried so hard to bury. The Emperor stood on the balcony of his ruined palace, watching the beast tear through his ships. His golden eyes burned with rage, his claws slicing through the railing. Around him, his guards trembled, waiting for orders that never came. He had ruled for centuries, He had crushed kings, broken armies, and commanded monsters. But he had never faced this. Never faced the look of calm defiance in the eyes of a child. "This ends tonight," he whispered, his voice shaking with fury. He ordered the launch of the Empire's greatest weapon, the SCIFI cannons. Massive towers hidden in the mountains lit up with a glow that turned night into false dawn. Energy hummed across the city, building toward a strike powerful enough to level entire continents. The order was simple: kill the beast, kill the child, burn everything if needed. The boy felt it before anyone else. His small body tensed, his hands gripping the beast's scales tightly. He looked to the sky, his dark eyes narrowing as the cannons began to glow. The beast growled deep in its throat, sensing the danger. The air itself vibrated with the charge of power, a storm ready to fall. The child leaned forward, pressing his face against the beast's neck, whispering words no one else could hear. The monster let out a roar that shook the heavens. It wasn't just anger, it was something deeper, something alive, primal, unstoppable. The cannons fired. Bolts of white energy screamed across the sky, blinding, endless, faster than thought. The alien commanders smiled grimly, certain that nothing could survive. Entire worlds had fallen to this fire. No living creature had ever walked away from its touch. But tonight was different. The beast spread its wings wide, wrapping them around the boy like a shield. The first bolt struck, and instead of burning flesh, the flames of energy bent, twisting, as if the air itself refused to let them touch the child. The beast roared again, louder this time, its golden eyes blazing brighter than the cannon fire. The second bolt came, then the third, until the entire sky was filled with the Empire's fury. And still, the beast flew forward. In the city below, aliens fell to their knees. Soldiers dropped their weapons, staring in disbelief. For centuries they had feared the SCIFI cannons. But now, before their very eyes, a child and a monster defied them. The boy raised his hand, pointing toward the mountains where the cannons glowed. The beast roared and obeyed. It climbed higher, wings tearing the clouds apart, before diving down like a falling star. The ground shook as it slammed into the first cannon, ripping the steel tower from its base, flames pouring across the valley. One by one, the cannons fell. Fire consumed them. Towers collapsed like broken bones. The Empire's greatest weapon was gone. The Emperor's heart twisted with rage and fear. He turned to his generals, his voice breaking for the first time. "Do you see? Do you understand now? This child is not human. No human could do this. He is a demon. Curse. If he lives, our empire dies." But deep inside, the Emperor already knew the truth. The child was human. That was what made it worse. If one human child could bend the most fearsome beast in the galaxy to his will, then what would happen if the rest of humanity discovered their power? The beast landed in the heart of the city, crushing the central square under its weight. Fires lit the streets, smoke rising like a black sea around them. The child slid from its back, standing tall despite his small frame. He looked at the terrified crowd of aliens, at the soldiers who could no longer lift their weapons, at the nobles who once laughed at human weakness but now cowered behind broken walls. He spoke. His voice was not loud, but in the silence that followed the destruction, every soul heard him. "You thought humans were weak," he said slowly in simple words. "But weakness is not in our blood. You fed me to your monster, and now your monster stands with me. Remember this." The beast roared, fire pouring into the sky, a signal that carried across the stars. Across the Empire, the story spread like wildfire. Whispers turned into rumors, rumors turned into songs, and songs turned into rebellion. On distant worlds, enslaved species looked to the sky and dared to dream of freedom. On human colonies far away, people heard the story and clenched their fists, their pride awakening. Even monsters, once loyal to the Empire, began to hesitate. For the first time, they feared not the Emperor, but the will of a human child. The Empire had not just lost a battle. It had lost its greatest weapon, fear. On the balcony of his ruined palace, the emperor fell to his knees. His golden eyes dimmed, his claws trembling. He could not accept it. He could not understand it. They fed a human child to the beast, he whispered to himself, voice shaking. And the ending shocked even the monsters. The flames rose higher. The stars burned brighter. And somewhere, far above the ruins of an empire, a child rode into the unknown on the back of a beast, carrying with him the one thing the galaxy had forgotten.